As I put on my white robe this morning, which signals, at least it does for clergy, that today is Yontif, I was reminded of a comment that Rabbi Davidson had made while we were robing for the last of the Shalosh Regalim, for the previous holiday, for Passover. And he noted then that the last time we had worn our white robes was for Simchat Torah, and that was October 7th. As long as I have been a rabbi, donning our white robes has carried a joyous anticipation for the holiday about to unfold, created through the majesty and music of our liturgy, our engagement with Torah's ancient words, and with the assembled community for whom these celebrations shape Jewish time. And going forward, will we always remember that terrible day when we wear these robes? Will it be a where were you when moment, a reference point which will always carry resonance of a catastrophic event and the subsequent war? For my parents' generation, the end of World War II and the establishment of Israel were among their major life events. And for my generation, touch points included the deaths of JFK, MLK, and RFK, as well as the moon landing. And more recent generations might point to the Challenger explosion, 9/11, and the introduction of the iPhone as life-changing. And you know this, ever since October 7th, Jewish time has had a new rhythm, Jewish identity a new presence. We show up differently now, even defiantly. Some wear ribbons or dog tags to prompt recognition of that terrible day, and others wear Jewish stars or chamsas to affirm their solidarity, to demonstrate a new understanding of peoplehood. Post-October 7th, so many have been motivated to learn in depth about the gift of our heritage. And as they expand their knowledge base, their Jewish identity and confidence grows with it. Though loss seems to overshadow so much right now, it is only a small part of our experience, whereas memory plays a huge role. When Israel was established, the government introduced Holocaust Remembrance Day to the world to ensure that subsequent generations would not forget the tragic horrors Hitler perpetrated. And last month, some 80 years after the war, 2 survivors, Holocaust survivors, came to speak to our students to give them a personal context for Yom HaShoah, and also to tell them about how they came to create a life that was productive and loving, despite their experiences. They exemplified the phrase, "The overwhelming response to Jewish death is Jewish life." Since 1988, thousands of participants from over 50 countries, and among them survivors and their descendants, have participated in something known as the March of the Living, which takes place in Poland. It's an affirmation of life, a memorial journey for some, and an education for others. Its purpose is to teach lessons about intolerance and hatred, about oppression and justice. The culminating steps of this 10-day march is the walk from Auschwitz to Birkenau. That distance is just 3 kilometers. But when the concentration camps were functioning, those steps were for so many their last. And now walking those 3 kilometers is an act of defiance, an act of memory, enabling participants to enter into history. Walkers experience and even become part of our people's story. Today, as we celebrate Matan Torah, the gift of Torah, chanted so beautifully by Rabbi Sapedin, let me tell you another story of Torah. Sometime after the awful attack on October 7th, a group of IDF soldiers came together at the site of the Nova Music Festival and began to write a Sefer Torah right there on the festival's now hallowed ground. Months passed as the Torah was being written, until that Torah was then brought along on the March of the Living and carried in the arms of participants until they reached the gates of Auschwitz. Among the marchers was Thomas Hand, whose 8-year-old daughter Emily had been taken hostage and later released in November. And Bella Chaim marched as well. She had fled the Nazis as a child and ultimately made a new life for herself in Israel. On October 7th, her grandson Yotam was taken hostage at the Nova Festival, and tragically he did not survive a rescue attempt. And though she vowed never to return to Poland, Bella came to the march to affirm life despite her sorrows. Within the chilling grounds of Auschwitz, she and 5 other survivors completed the Nova Torah, as each dedicated a letter of the Torah to the memory of loved ones they had lost. From Auschwitz to Nova to Auschwitz. Tradition teaches that in order to ready ourselves to receive the Torah, we have to study. And so it's customary to stay up overnight, all night, on Shavuot, to prime our spirits with knowledge. And for those who do, in Tractate Brachot, we find a relevant question. It asks, at what time in the morning can one begin to recite Shema? Or to say it differently, if we had stayed up all night, how early is too early to say the Shema? And the sages respond in a variety of ways. Rabbi Eliezer said, when you can distinguish between the 2 adjacent colors, blue and green, the blue that was once used for tzitzit. And another response notes, when you can identify the face of a friend in the dawning light. The face of a friend. As we learn through the accounts of those who survived Nova, festival participants danced with friends all night through and with strangers who had become friends, all waiting for daybreak, when the faces of their partners would be revealed. And during Yizkor, we too recognize the face of a friend, one who is grieving, and see how one person's grief is borne by others and how that can be transformative for all. When Almog, Meyer John, was rescued from captivity only days ago last Shabbat, the entire country and Jews worldwide rejoiced. We surely did hear that morning. And only later, as hostage families were reunited, did we learn that Almog's father, Yossi, had died just the day before his son's rescue, they say, of a broken heart. Jan's individual loss became the loss of a nation. And just as the nation had rejoiced one day earlier, so they mourned with Almog and his family and with each other. The grief of one became the grief of all. And here is one more example of how the grief of a nation is also personal. Arnon Zamora was the man who led the rescue mission to free Almog and Noah Argamani and Andrei Kozlov and Shlomi Ziv. And he died from the wounds he sustained during the rescue. A national hero, his funeral was attended literally by thousands. And after all the eulogists, his wife Michal said this: "Everything is now filled with the image of a fallen hero, Chief Inspector Arnon Zamora. But long before he was a warrior and a hero, he was a sweet and charming man, an amazing partner, a perfect father, a loving and beloved man. That's how we'll remember him, and I'd love for you to, too." Our own Giborim, the heroes in our lives, were partners and parents too, loved ones, teachers, and friends, whose companionship enriched our lives, whose wisdom still guides us, whose memories still sustain us through the night. In this hour, as our individual sorrows are joined to the communal experience of memory, may our personal darkness give way to light, to be seen and recognized as a friend who is also a mourner. That too is a comfort. May we draw strength and hope, comfort and courage from one another, as together we remember.